Thank you. So, quick show of hands, how many folks in the room have a really good, solid understanding of what big data is? Good. So we've got quite a few hands up. So when Paula approached me, I actually cover marketing technologies and sales technologies. I'm an analyst. I own a market research firm. And I gave this presentation for marketers, which was basically to distill this whole concept of big data and take the technical side out of it and just talk about what does this mean for marketing. Because one of the challenges right now in the market is you have these very technical, statistically oriented minds, technical minds, who are crunching big data and doing some really incredible things with the big data, and then you have business users who are supposed to make decisions and ascertain better business processes from this data. And there's a huge disconnect because those roles are traditionally not the same. All right, so we're going to play kind of Mystic of the East for a little while, unseen answers to unseen questions in big data. I'm just going to try to distill this, and for those of you who know a lot about big data, this is probably going to be a very high level, and you're going to go, that's ridiculous. But if you don't know a lot about big data, this is going to be a great overview on what it is. So it got really popular in 2012, about a year and a half ago or so, and you saw this huge uptick in people talking about big data. And I think it moves so quickly that a lot of marketers and business users think of this term exactly like Paula said, which is, it's all this, we've got lots of data in this company, there's tons of customer data we're collecting on web analytics, what do we do with it? We're really not using, maybe 1% of it is actually being used. So the broadest definition that you'll generally see is it's data that is so large and complex it has outgrown the ability to aggregate and process it from a single database or repository. So we're collecting and aggregating data to the point where we can't analyze it and extract insights from it because we were maxed out. And with this challenge of big data comes a number of different nuances, and these are general data nuances, but capturing the data. Where does it come from? All these different systems. How do you curate the data and store it and search for it and share it and transfer it? And we're going to talk about a lot of these today, but basically when you think about big data, why now? How come in 2012, 2013 this is like such a huge discussion? Well, first of all, there are advances in computing and capacity and storage. So we now have systems from Oracle and platforms and things that are able to crunch the numbers on big data in a very quick fashion. So we're not talking about weeks to analyze data, we're talking about seconds or minutes, whereas before it would have been weeks. There's definitely growth in digital channels and data availability. We've seen a lot of print moving online and accessible. And then information grows so rapidly, I kind of think of this like those Russian dolls. And your goal is to take these big data, pieces of big data, and extract insights from them. It's the little insights inside of the big insights. The challenge is when you extract those insights, you have to put it right back into the big data again. And these data sets grow exponentially over time. So it definitely addresses some of the limitations in business. Consumer data. How do you analyze Twitter? It's an unstructured data feed. How do you understand what your customers are looking for from your organization? And then the sciences, obviously, genomics and physics and biological limitations from a data standpoint are now capable of extracting even more data. So how big is it? Can we put our mind around it? We mentioned that it was a petabyte, but basically just very quickly, you all know what a gigabyte is. It's on those little flashcards that are out there. A terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes. A petabyte is 1,000 terabytes, and we're actually talking exabyte. And so if you look at the world's information, it's actually measured in exabytes. So Oracle produced this huge platform that looks like a refrigerator, and it can calculate exabytes of data. Let's put some perspective on that. Walmart handles every day 1 million customer transactions an hour. And those are imported into 2.5 petabytes of data databases. That's equivalent to 167 times the information contained in all books in the Library of Congress. So just to put your mind around that, it's pretty massive, and that's in a single day. They're collecting these huge amounts of information and storing them. So the technical considerations, I'm not going to go deep on this, but I think you should know if you're standing around the water cooler. There's definitely a lot of components to this big data, and if we start with that arrow, it's definitely data that's too big to manage in a single database. There's strategy behind it. The movement of data changed. We used to talk about extract, transform, and load. There was a middle process when you would move data from one server to another where you would transform it. And because of computing capacity now, you can actually move the data onto the server, transform it there, and do tremendous amount of analytics on a server. So that was a huge change over the last 5 to 10 years that has happened in the market. It's about real-time analytics. So it's about giving marketers or whoever, business users or whoever, access to data at their fingertips. So you're not having to rely on statisticians and IT to do it. unstructured and structured information, we all know what that is. Structured information is on a form. Unstructured would be like Twitter, where you have numbers and percentages and statistics and things. All right. So let's talk about this in the context of product innovation. What role can big data play in the global, innovative environment? What do we call this session today? In product innovation. So you can use it to inform product improvements on old products. And if you can't see in the back, that's actually a paintbrush that sits on the paint can. It's a really great idea. But a lot of organizations are monitoring unstructured social feeds from their clients. So things that you wouldn't think that they would ever want to care about, a paintbrush, people complaining on Twitter, I got paint everywhere because I dropped the brush again. Using that information, how do you extract that out of these huge sources of information? Informing product placement and promotion decisions. Last year at the Oracle Open World, Larry Ellison did an analysis on his Exadata server of Twitter, and he looked at, for Toyota, which celebrities should we use to promote this particular product. And so he did this huge, right in real time, looked at 1 billion different tweets on the product, and distilled down who was connected based on the celebrities, and it's not who you think it might be. It's not people who have anything to do with cars. And so interesting insights there. And then from a modern monitoring standpoint, you're seeing like John Deere, the tractors, and they do in the fields, and Ford actually putting sensors and cameras and Wi-Fi and connecting their engines to satellites that collect information. So, for John Deere, they're actually looking at how often their products are used, how many, what kind of earth and soil and the climate temperature that their products are used in. So, interesting ramifications for, warranty and product updates and things like that. So, what's the real impact? Well, actually, all this information has a huge, there's a huge hole in this conceptual benefit here, and that is that some of the information you're analyzing is personal information. There's intellectual property, there's competitive information, you're combining data sets, and so within this context, and we're going to talk about this in more detail, you have protection and security. Who's going to manage this, and where's the accountability come from as companies collect all this data and combine it together? Rights and responsibilities of the users themselves. The World Economic Forum and the Boston Consulting Group in February of 2013 published a study that's actually really interesting, and this is not me, this is what they said. But just to distill it, basically, they're saying that the traditional approach to data was you knew where the information was going to be used. If I'm a user and I'm online and I sign up for a form and they say, we're going to use your data for the following reasons, that was fine. Now, that data may be combined with other data, and you may be ascertaining insights that could not have been foreseen. So it's creating a lot of issues in, do people know where their information is really being used? And a great example of that is in the healthcare industry. This gray on the left here is showing when you systematically collect and make public health outcome data, so it's not like it's insights on individuals, but just the general outcome, when that's public, then the healthcare can improve their quality index. So the problem is, in many cases, you can actually back into whose data that is if you're a very technical person. So there are some nuances to, is this right? We're making the world better, but at the same time, we're sharing people's information that would otherwise be private. And that kind of brings up this whole privacy considerations and privacy laws. In the United States and in Europe, they just have the European cookie directive where you actually can't track cookies on individuals who are searching online. And even in Europe, like, healthcare data is very, very private, and they don't even want the healthcare people having that information. So, and just this idea that combining data sets is creating new insights, it's also creating this nebulous kind of, where do we go with this? How do we manage and monitor it? So, with that, we'll dive deep into some of the real context for the presentation, and I'll introduce Jerry.